Movie time. Welcome to season 2 of Mr. Sweet.
We didn't have like a finale.
We
did a New Year's episode already. It's not even.
Welcome to the second semester of Mr. Sweet. Recently, in the past couple weeks, we watched what is probably one of the best horror movies ever made.
I'm gonna write the best book that anybody's ever read.
But before we talk about it,
Mediterranean pickles.
I hate pickles. You're not allowed to like those, because then you'll buy more.
Man, this is a weird pickle. The movie Sinister is about a kind of a one-hit wonder author that has fallen on some hard times, and he writes these crime thriller novels. So he moves into this house where a bunch of people were found hung from a tree, and so he's trying to investigate, how did this happen, who did it, because the police never figured it out. So as he stays here, he gets all these tapes left in the house, and they're tapes of the murders, and he's trying to figure it out. It's this whole big incredible adventure, and it's very well done. Comparing it to anything I've seen in theaters or otherwise as of recent, I mean, we saw The Witch, we saw Hereditary, we saw Halloween. At other points in time, we've seen The Conjuring 1, Conjuring 2.
Even, wasn't The Boy the same as The Conjuring?
No, we saw The Boy.
We saw The Boy.
You can't talk until you eat a pickle. There's no more words until you have a pickle.
Oh.
All right.
Well, I haven't been frightened by a horror movie in a while, but it was late. Not like college student late. Like, we've stayed up till like 3 before.
3 easily.
But like, it was like 11:30 and it was dark outside. Very unsettling movie. Especially like with a twist. I have talked to other people about the twist at the end. Are we spoiling the movie?
Not yet. Well, okay, when you're a younger kid and you play video games and you're like, ooh, horror games sound so cool. As frightening as they are, you always know that you can turn it off and you never have to see or experience that again. You can delete it.
Right.
In this film, the man receives tapes of these murders, and they're terrifying. And even though he turns it off, and it's like old film, so he winds it all the way back up, he puts it away in a box, he puts the box in an attic. When he goes to bed, he's woken up, though, by the films being played. And no matter how many times that he puts it away, it finds itself back in his living room playing these terrifying tapes. And that is so scary to me.
And even the fact that...
From this point on, there's gonna be spoilers. Spoilers are allowed now.
He moves to a new house at the end of the movie to get away from the murders. And he finds the box of tapes in the new house attic, only to get a phone call from his counterpart earlier in the movie, who was like his police officer helper friend, basically saying the family that lived in the previous
Everyone that has stayed in that house, after they move out of that house, they're killed. So in him trying to escape the murders and the haunting of that house, he actually just sealed his own fate. They do where it's, look, everyone's safe now. And it's so obvious that the threat is not gone, that they just tried to avoid it. Like in Trolls 2, it's like, oh no, we're back home, except, there's green slime.
I think it's cool if a movie can take away the aspect of, you can turn it off and it goes away. You end this movie and you still feel like, one of my favorite things I've been saying recently is you held in a sneeze. You just like, you didn't receive what your brain wants you to receive, which is like closure. Mm-hmm. And that closure in that aspect is like very comforting. And you didn't get it. So then you gotta watch My Hero Academia.
What's the villain in this movie, Corbin?
The villain is Bagul is his name. But basically, he kind of allures these children to murder their families.
Bagul is this pagan god that eats children.
You don't really know who it is the entire time. You have a few ideas of who it might be, but you never get a clear picture of who it is. You know that there is a killer. It's not like a suicide thing that's going around.
Well, and pretty soon into the movie, he starts seeing the images of this like distorted looking man with like a white face. Yeah, well,
And Bagul is a very scary looking person.
terrifying. Let's get a picture of him up on. Let's get a picture of him up here.
On my face.
Put him on his face.
Just let it soak up in your mouth. Steep it in your mouth. What are you doing? Why? Why are we doing this?
Now let's talk about the pacing of this movie. The issue with a lot of horror movies is what they do is they make a...
That was my bad.
Can I talk?
No, it was an accident.
Gosh. Normally what horror movies do is they have a really boring drama plot that's like poorly acted and it's slow and it's uninteresting. And then they start to insert little, you know, jumps. They'll have like that fake jump scare where somebody opens a door and it's like a kid or something and it's
Or
like
their friend.
Mm-hmm. And then the real jump scare happens after that. While it did have this movie did not feel so much like a movie as it felt like an experience. There were times where you were in the shoes of the man, you were like watching it from his perspective, and it was frightening. And that was way scarier than Hereditary. What they tried to do is they tried to make it really artsy and like, it's not even a horror movie until, you know, an hour and a half into the movie. And now it's going crazy and oh, look, here's a satanic person, here's naked people. Like, are you shocked yet? This movie didn't do that for you. While it did have a drama plot before it got scary, throughout you are pretty much watching a crime thriller until it becomes a horror movie. And I loved that about it.
Hereditary was a great movie. It was very artsy. I had to remind myself to pay attention to the movie. It wasn't like, oh, I'm experiencing this movie. And that movie was like 2.5, almost 3 hours long. I could have watched Sinister for 3 hours.
Oh. That is glass that could have broken.
Oh, that's delicious.
What didn't we like about this movie? What held it back from being a perfect film? When you are watching this guy in his bed and he's woken up by the sound of this film projector going. He gets out of bed to go check on it and figure out why it's running, even though he took it apart and put it away. But you know what took me out of it? They start playing this like cheesy horror music where it's like violins playing, you know, really high-pitched notes. That took me out of it immediately.
20,000 Hertz, I am endorsing them.
There's a part where he's walking through the house very slowly looking for a sound that he heard. He thinks it's a burglar. There's just these kids in like crappy like white makeup just like walking around.
I think what they were trying to do is they were... Uncross your arms.
No, I'm listening.
They were trying to show the kids that you find out later on in the movie that killed their parents, but they presented it very poorly.
If we have the time, Adam in post, insert the clip of that here. It'd be funny to have a clip of you.
Also, that scene with the box where his son was in it, that was dumb. It showed that he had night terrors, but it was a cheap scare.
Yeah, I guess so. I think that was a cheap scare. But then it becomes scarier because it doesn't cease. Normally a jump scare is like, 1 second, thing pops out, but they lingered on this kid who's just screaming for like minutes, and they pick him up and they try to wake him up and they bring him outside, and he doesn't stop. I think that was frightening.
Okay.